everyone, my name is Tori, this is Novel Life, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to my June wrap-up, where I'm going to chat about the 15 books that I read this month. So for my statistics, I read 7 audio, 7 ebooks, and 1 physical book, even though I have way more physical books to show you and hold up. I just digitally read a lot. So breakdown for star rating, it's actually very interesting what my breakdown was for this month. I had 1 5-star read, just 1, no 4.5 stars, but I had 9 4 stars. And I can't tell if that's good or bad. I really can't tell if that's good or bad. I had 2 3.5 stars and 3 3 stars. And I did have 1 DNF. Now for my pages read, I had a total of 5,883 pages. I did read some chunkier books at the beginning of the month. And then I tapered off to like more like normal books. So 15 books is, I'm so happy with that. My reading has been sporadic and random, but I'm really happy with 15 books that I read. So let's just go ahead and talk about all of them now. So the first book I finished in June was The Throne of Honor and Blood by J. Bree. Now I definitely have a lot of thoughts on this because I feel like a lot of people do, honestly. And I just felt that it was a big disappointment for me, unfortunately. I started it in May when it came out, and it took me about like 2 weeks to actually finish the book, or a week and a half to finish the book, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. Now, a lot of people will say a lot of things, right? Oh, the editing was bad. Oh, it took forever to come out. Oh, she kept using this as an excuse and that as an excuse. And honestly, I don't care when this book would have come out. I would have read it any other time that it would have been published. So my 3-star rating is not based on, oh, it took forever for it to actually release, or, oh, the editing was bad. Was there editing errors? Absolutely. 100% there was, and I noticed them, but that's not what my 3-star rating was about. My 3-star rating was, I just felt like everything that she built up in the first book really let me down in the second. It was complete opposite. The characters were making decisions that were not, what's the word? Like, it didn't make sense with the characters that we met in the first book. Like, we were introduced to Rook and Soren, and they were super strong. They were, you know, they were set in their ways in a way, and you know, they both made decisions, and especially Soren, he made certain decisions that I was expecting, not groveling, but I expected some type of not giving in to him, right? And she really gave in to him in every way, like not just love, but like in a, oh yeah, you can make this decision, oh yeah, I'll go along with this decision, stuff like that. And it just didn't make sense to me from the character, specifically Brooke, that we met in the first book. It was like a different character altogether, and that's really disappointing. And there were certain things that came out at the end of the book that really felt out of character, not out of character, like it was just thrown in there for the plot wise. So I do want to continue on with the series because I'm hoping that the 3rd book gets better and she explains and certain things are explained and yada yada yada, right? But for this book in particular, it just was a very underwhelming for me, and maybe I had too high of expectation because of the first book, but yeah, that one, sorry for the rant right off the bat, but that was a little bit of a disappointment to me. The next one I read was The Dixon Rule by L. Kennedy. So I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I do personally like The Grimm Effect more. I did rate it 4 stars on Goodreads, but like the more that I think about it when I go to do my wrap-ups, I fill out my reading journal with everything, and if I can remember things, that's great. If I can't, then that says maybe it wasn't the best book. And this book was way too long. It's forced proximity. I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't as connected to the characters in this book, and I do feel that she threw in a couple of things that makes it emotional towards the end of the book, and it was not out of nowhere because you saw it coming, but I just felt like it wasn't really fleshed out in the perfect way, and I wasn't really connecting because I felt like it was kind of jarring. It was like, oh, we're throwing this in there now, like just because it's the end of the book. So I had some pacing issues with this one, but I still thought it was a solid L. Kennedy book. The Grimm Effect is still my favorite in this series. Will I continue? Absolutely. This one was just like not my personal favorite, if that makes sense. And then I read Before We Came by Sloane St. James. So this one I saw going around on TikTok this whole series. This is like a pro hockey series, and this is like, I don't know how to describe this book. It's a contemporary romance. He plays pro hockey. There was a lot, I don't know which, okay, the beginning of this book is more like romantic suspense, kind of suspensey. You're like trying to figure out what the hell happened to this girl. You see that her mom passed away, and she has like a lot of resentment towards her mom, and I'm like, wow, you're doing a lot for your mom that's not here anymore, but you have like a lot of resentment, and things start to come out by like halfway through the book, and I was really vibing with it. I'm like, this is gonna be great. and I ended up giving it like 3.5, 4 stars, just because the last half of the book was like just them being together, and there wasn't any of that conflict that was at the beginning of the book. Like, not that there should have been, but it's like a brother's best friend. There's just secrets that come out. It's hockey. He's a man obsessed, and he makes decisions based on that obsession with her, and it was just kind of like it was really good, but like the second half kind of like diminished it. So like a 4 star, like it would have been a 4.5 star, but like it got diminished a little bit by the second half of the book, so it was a 3.5 star. I really hope that makes sense, but it was a book I would still recommend. My friend Jess read it. I feel like she loves this type of book, and she also enjoyed it, but she also said that the second half of the book was not her favorite in her wrap-up too. So yeah, it was just one of those things where I was like, okay, so we're on the same page, we get it. Like, it was solid. Do I want to continue? Yes, because I do like the way that she writes. It was my first Sloane St. James book. So then the next book I picked up was a new release, and that was Leather and Lark by Bren Weaver. You guys know I love Butcher and Blackbird, and Butcher and Blackbird was my favorite, I think, not only for the humor, because they're both serial killers, but they also have really dark humor. Leather and Lark, you don't really get to see a lot of the dark humor as much in the second book, so I ended up giving this 4 stars, while Butcher and Blackbird was a 5-star read. I do like that she is a serial killer, and I do like how everyone finds out. It's very funny. And I do like, she calls herself a serial deleter. That's what she calls her, because she doesn't like that term. It is very kind of rom-com-y a little bit. You see that Lachlan is trying to get out of his contracts of like being contract killer and all of this stuff like that. And he's like trying to like get away from all of that, and you know, all just try to get away. And the only thing that he can do is he has to like fake marry. They have like a fake engagement, get fake married. Or no, they actually do get fake married. They actually do get married, but it's like fake. It's just for convenience things. And I liked it. I liked Lachlan. I liked Lark. It kept my attention. I listened to the audiobook, and it definitely kept my attention. It just didn't hit the same as Butcher and Blackbird. And I feel like it's hard because you're comparing it to other books in this series, but like, how can you not with something like this? It's still unique in its own way, and I would recommend it, and I did enjoy this one. Then the next book I read was When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. I have a whole reading vlog on this book, but this was my only 5-star read of the month. I was surprised. No, dragons, very, very, very unique, and I really loved that. I did DNF this book previously at 20% back at the beginning of the year, but I listened to the audio when I physically read along this time, and that's a game changer. The first 20% is very hard to get into for me, but after that, it kind of like her writing, you get used to it. The pacing, the style of fantasy romance that she writes, like how it's just like different, you know, you're thrown in different, you know, thrown in this scene, thrown to that scene, and all this stuff. I personally liked it, but yeah, 5-star. If I'm being like super picky, it's probably a 4.5-star read, but that's just because it's very long. But still, it was such a good read, such an enjoyable read. I love the characters, and I want to reread it before the end of the year. Then I read Forbidden King by Laura Pavlov. I've been loving this series, and this one is like a brother's best friend, childhood friends to lovers, small town. It's the 3rd book in this series, and I gave this one 4 stars. I listened to the audiobook actually like in one day, basically. When I was going to Book Bonanza, I listened to the audiobook, and I did enjoy it. It's one thing with this is like childhood friends to lovers. It's just sweet. It's so sweet. It's adorable, and I loved it. I just, you know, like it was a solid read. I love the family aspect in this series, and it's one of my favorite, like the found family with all the guys. It's one of my favorites. But this male character, like when you were introduced to all of them in the first book, he's like my least favorite. Like, he was my least interested. Like, I love his story. It was adorable. This one was super cute, but like I was the least interested, you know what I mean? So I think The Single Dad is next, I'm hoping, because I cannot wait for that one. Then I read An Arc of Histessoro by Emilia Rossi. I only picked this up because I saw fan art of our female character being in a wheelchair. She uses a wheelchair, and I was like, sold. This is mafia, arranged marriage, oh my god, forced proximity. I loved this one. Now, this is my first book by this author, so I really didn't know what to expect, and I gave it 4 stars. The pacing of the story was slightly off, which is why I didn't give it 5 stars, but overall it was such an enjoyable read. I think the representation of having a disability and chronic illness, she has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, was so good. I loved the representation, and it's very hard for authors to do it well because I'm very picky with that, but I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I loved the mafia aspect. I loved how he was basically an asshole to everyone but her. I love how he started to take care of her. Like, he didn't even bat an eye when the first time he saw her she was in a wheelchair. I just loved it. I love the complexity of her dealing with her chronic illness and being told most of her whole life, like when she lived with her father, that she was basically useless to him because she has this disability and stuff like that, which I think a lot of people who have a disability who kind of have that inner monologue sometimes. So it was interesting to see that in a character, and then how she kind of moves on from that, and she's put with this hero that she thinks is gonna say the same thing, but he doesn't, and he just embraces her how she is. And yeah, I loved it. It was so good. I definitely want to check out more from this author. The next one I read was The House on Bisin Bay by Chanel Clayton. So you guys know I am a huge historical fiction lover, and I love Chanel Clayton, but this book really let me down. Like, I rated it 3 stars, but if I'm being honest, it would be more of like a 2.5. Yeah, this one did not work for me. I can't even tell you anything that happened in this book. I listened to the audio and I was so bored. I personally do not think this is a historical fiction book. It takes place in a historical time, but it's not the true historical fiction. It's more of like historical mystery. You're trying to figure out what happened to these women. You're like following 2 different timelines, which Chanel Clayton does all the time, but I'm like, why are we following these 2 different timelines? But like, I don't even care. I don't care that these women died. Like, why do we care? It's surrounding this house in 2 different time periods, and it just did not work for me. And I do know other people who read this over on my Patreon, because we had a live show about this. They also felt the same way. So yeah, that one was not the best for me, unfortunately. The next book I read was To Ravish a Road by C.M. Niscosta. So I read this for an exclusive reading vlog. My patrons always pick 2 books for me to read for an exclusive reading vlog over on my Patreon. And this is one of the first ones, and I thought, oh, this will be fun. It's like a 6.5 hour audiobook. I rated this 3 stars because in my vlog I talk about this, so you can join and see all my thoughts, but I felt conflicted. I was like, this is a book existing in the world, but like, I was waiting for the plot to kick in this book, but there is no plot. The plot was not plotting. It was pure erotica, which is like fine and dandy. I guess I just expected it because it's like a clinch cover and stuff like that, but it's like a retelling of A Gentle Rogue. Is that what it is? I think it's A Gentle Rogue by Joanna Lindsay, like an OG clinch cover historical romance. So like, she's trying to get to this place and she joins this ship, and you know, no women are supposed to be on the ship, so she dresses up as like a cabin boy, and our hero knows that it's like she's a woman, but she just kind of like goes along with it and like makes her do all these like stupid things on the ship and stuff like that, and then he starts having a romance with her, and like, it was interesting. I was just like, this was a fun time, but it was a book existing in the world. So that was my consensus for that book. And then I decided to pick up The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee because I picked up this gorgeous hardcover edition at Book Bonanza. It is so pretty. I love the pink. And I was like, you know what? I want to read it because I have the physical copy and I'm trying to read more of my physical books on my shelves. And I ended up giving this like 4 stars. 4, maybe 4.5 if that's pushing it. This is a super fun fantasy romance. I did read Holly Renee's other fantasy romance series and I did enjoy that. Well, I read the first 2 books. I never completed the series. But I did enjoy that series. It was just fun. It's an easy fantasy romance that you can really jump. I say easy in the way that's like easy to get into. It's not overly confusing. It's not a very heavy world building. It's just very easy. You jump right in. You jump into the characters' lives. You're trying to figure out what's going on. You're figuring out what's going on, what they're doing, where they're going, their thought process and stuff like that, and it's fun. The tension and chemistry between the 2 characters in this book is off the charts. I would say this is more of like a spicier fantasy romance, but it's still solid. Can't wait for the second book. It does end on a major cliffhanger, but I gave it 4 stars. And I really enjoyed it. The next book I read was Spitting Gold by Carmela Laukin. So this is a debut author, which I was very surprised by. And I will say, the cover is a little scary because it has some frogs. But there's a little like kid story in this book that's told. Like, it's following 2 sisters. You see that they have to like go and do these seances to like get money, but they're like fake seances basically. And so this family hires them, and she's like, no. One of the sisters is like, no, I walked away from this. Like, I haven't seen you in years. What do you want? And she's like, father is sick. I need help. We need money. I need you to come do this. So they're like making this ruse and stuff of doing this seance to like get this ghost out of the house or whatever. And it's like cute and fun and dandy. It's a little creepy. It started to get a little creepy. Like, I couldn't read part of this book at night because I was like, I don't do that kind of stuff. But I actually really enjoyed this. It's it definitely follows the 2 sisters. It's not really a romance at all, but I really enjoyed this. It's like historical fiction, very gothic. Like, that gothic is my thing this year, and this is added to that list, and I really enjoyed it. But the frogs and the gold comes from like a story that they were told as kids, like a a nursery rhyme, but something like that where it's like a frogs and gold and stuff. I've never heard of it. Some people may have. I've just never heard of it, and I really enjoyed this one, so I gave it 4 stars. There is a kind of sapphic romance in here that's not like the main focus, but there is a sapphic romance that I actually enjoy too. So then I decided to read 2 books in the Landmark Mountain series. I read Irresistible and I read Falling, so I'll talk about them together even though I read them at different times. This is the 3rd and 4th book in the series. Irresistible is enemies to lovers, single parent, small town. So you see that our female character is the best friend of one of the female characters from the previous book. She comes to town with her daughter and she has like a run-in with the doctor Wyatt, and it's so funny because he's just like, I've had a bad fucking day and you hit my car, what the hell. So it's really funny, but then they really start to like get to know each other and they kind of like take it easy. They're like, you know what, we can just have a physical relationship, that's all I'm looking for. Like, life is crazy right now, like I don't really know what's going on, but the way that he handles her and her daughter is so sweet. I love it when the kids are actually like prevalent in the book, and she's a very important part of the book, so I really like that one. And then Falling is once again small town, forced proximity, runaway bride. Our female character actually comes from like a different town. I don't know if Willa Astor's gonna write that town or if she has, I don't know, but she runs away when she hears her soon-to-be husband talking just awful things about her and how he's only marrying her to get the land from her family. So she takes her pet emu Dolly and she gets in her RV and she drives to Landmark Mountain to see her uncle who lives there, and her uncle's like, I'm at your wedding, what are you talking about? Of course I'm not here, where are you? And so she has to explain it, and this hero comes who knows her uncle, and he is so sweet. He owns this like dairy farm. He has cows and stuff like that, and it is so cute. I gave them both of these books 4 stars. They are my favorite in the series. I have one more book to finish the beginning of July, but I loved these 2. They were super adorable. I would highly recommend the small town romance. It starts off rocky. The first book's not my favorite, but they progressively get better, and I love that. And then I read a novel, Love Story by Ashley Poston. This is one of my most anticipated releases of the year. And I do have a reading vlog over on my Patreon, and I put this in a reading vlog, like my weekly reading vlog, and I just felt a little, not let down, but it was a 4-star read. It didn't live up to the same 2 books that I previously read by her, and I know it's because we didn't get the hero's perspective in here, but I know why we didn't. So I feel very conflicted with that. I feel like I would have emotionally connected to this book more, like I did her other books, if I got the hero's perspective, but we do not get his perspective for reasons. But this is like an ode to romance readers. I loved the story. I thought it was absolutely adorable. Our female character, she's going to this cabin for this book club that she always has every year, but no one can make it but her. She gets stuck in this small town, and that small town, she is like, oh, this reminds me of my favorite, you know, romance series. And that, you know, she always put twists in her books. So 4 stars for this one. And then I ended the month with Tell Me How You Hate Me by Callie Mel. This was a new release. This is a legitimately hate to love figure skater romance. They both are in the same circuit, but both of their partners have to like stop skating. One is pregnant and one has like this new chronic illness that they're dealing with, so they have to get paired together. They have intense chemistry like on the ice, but they like really hate each other, and I thought it was a fun time. I gave it 4 stars. It was my first Callie Mel book, and I was not disappointed in that. So yeah, if you're looking for a good hate to love, and I mean true hate to love in a contemporary romance, it was like giving from Luke Off with Love vibes. So if that means anything to you, definitely check out Tell Me How You Hate Me by Callie Mel. But those are all the 15 books that I read in the month of June. I will say I DNF'd Den of Vipers. You can check out my weekly vlog to figure out why, but I DNF'd that one. Are we surprised? No. But leave me a pink heart emoji in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content from me. As always, I hope you're living a novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.